Now we are live. Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us to discuss the problem of plastic pollution and legislative steps we can take to solve it. My name is Eric. I'm with 350 South Florida. 350.org is a climate action group that is focused on climate justice, but also other environmental issues. And we have several working groups in their South Florida chapter, one of which deals with consumer awareness and specifically focused on plastics. So we have three guests speaking with us today on this presentation. So I'll just introduce them really quickly. First is Diana Pacin-deGongora. She is with our community awareness group at 350, and her grassroots advocacy was born out of an awe for nature and an intimate connection to the divine spark she finds in all creation. She trained as a mechanical engineer and worked with the air conditioning and refrigeration industry in the 1990s when the industry was revolutionized by the Montreal Protocol to transition away from ozone-depleting refrigerants. Later, while working as an adjunct professor at Miami-Dade College, she collaborated with the Earth Ethics Institute to both learn about and foster Earth literacy in her teaching. She has organized presentations and public events with her faith group to promote awareness of environmental issues and encourage change through sustainable living. And she advocates to promote a sustainable transition to break free from plastics. Next, we will have Catherine Uden from Oceana. She's the field representative for Oceana in South Florida. She's been involved in ocean and coastal conservation in Broward County for over 10 years. She has experience in campaign management and grassroots organizing, leading successful campaigns to reduce plastic pollution, protect coastal habitat, and ensure public beach access. Prior to working for Oceana, she has been served as the chair of the Surfrider Foundation in Broward County and has been a strong coalition partner in Oceana's work to, Surfrider has been a strong coalition partner with Oceana's work to stop seismic airgun blasting and offshore drilling in the Atlantic. And then lastly, we will have Anastasia from SurfriderMiami. Anastasia is an environmental entrepreneur and founder at Lean Orb, a compostable food service packaging company powered by data and corporate education. She also leads the Rise Above Plastics program for the Surfrider Foundation Miami chapter. So we will have each person present their and then we will have questions and answers afterwards. If you have questions for any of the attendees, for any of the panelists, please type that in the chat and we will get to that at the end of, towards the end of the program. Please make sure that you have the chat function set to panelists and attendees so that everybody can see the questions that you'll be asking. So without further ado, Diana, please take it away.
Okay, very well. Good evening. Just going to here share my screen. Okay, very good. So good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Diana Pacin-deGongora, and I'm with 350 South Florida Community Awareness Group. Our group aims to promote community awareness through education that would lead to action. So from the beginning of our group, we decided that we wanted to work with plastics because plastic is one of the worst offenders of our time. It's an ever-increasing polluter and pollutes land, water, and air, and also emits greenhouse gases and chemical toxins. So it also contributes to climate change. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to present to you some slides with information of reports and studies and some facts that have been established about plastic pollution so that we can have like a background into plastic pollution. So every year, 8.8 million tons of plastic enter our oceans worldwide. This is the equivalent of 5 grocery bags filled with plastic trash sitting on every foot of coastline around the world. So I would like to pause for a moment and picture that 5 grocery bags filled with plastic trash then sitting around every foot of coastline around the entire world of all continent islands. So that is about a lot of plastic trash. Then also can be equated to a garbage truck full of plastic into the oceans every minute. So we see like day to day and year round how much plastic we as a society, as a culture are putting into the environment. So the Ellen MacArthur Foundation reports that by 2025, for every 3 tons of fish, there will be 1 ton of plastic in the ocean. And bear in mind that plastics are very lightweight, so it takes a lot of plastics to amount to a pound and even more 2 tons of it. Now, seabirds mistake plastic for food. They feed it to they eat it themselves, they feed it to their cheeks. And then because plastic is not food, they feel full and they don't eat anymore and they died of starvation. Also, often plastic debris has sharp edges, and this lacerates their internal organs, and then it causes injury and death. Now, also, plastic is getting to sea animals. In this seafood study, was found that plastic was present in all the samples analyzed. They analyzed prawns, squid, oyster, and sardines. You know, seafood that typically are eaten commonly. So when we eat this, seafood, then we also consume the food, consume the plastic. So plastic was also found in water. In this study, water particles were found in 83% of the 159 samples analyzed. And the source of these samples was both tap water and bottled water. And finally, plastic has been even found in the human placenta, in all parts of the placenta. And these are very small plastic particles, and it is believed that the particles were in the air, that were breathed in by the mothers and then transferred to the blood, the mother's blood, and then from there to the placenta. So then now studies are being carried to see how that will affect the fetus and then eventually the human being that is born from there. So in these examples that I have cited, I've only been talking about one part of the life cycle of plastics, which is the last part, the disposal. When we find plastic out in the oceans or animals ingesting it, or we breathe it. So, but in reality, plastic pollutes throughout its entire life cycle, from extraction from the ground. Most plastic is made using gas from fracking. Fracking is a problem that is, it's a method that is very problematic because it causes a lot of pollution. It pollutes underground water, uses a lot of chemical in order to do the process, and then it emits all this pollution to the environment. So when the plastic is, the fossil fuels are transported and then refined, they also emit greenhouse gases and toxins and so on throughout the entire life cycle. So it is important to mention also that plastic does not decompose when it's in whatever it is disposed or it's out there in the environment. It breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, and that's how it gets to all parts and in all life. Now, in this report from the Center for International Environmental Law, Plastic and Climate, it is reported that at current levels, greenhouse gas emissions from the plastic life cycle threaten the ability of the global community to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius or about 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, and that by 2050, the greenhouse gas emissions from plastic could reach over 56 gigatons, and that would be 10 to 13% of the entire remaining carbon budget. And the carbon budget is the amount of CO2 emissions that can enter the atmosphere to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise. So also it is important to point that this is a conservative report, and that most numbers and most amounts are believed that are going to be larger than that. So this is the minimal that it is expected to happen. Now, for a very long time, we've been told that it's up to us, the consumer, to control plastic pollution. We've been told to recycle more, to recycle often, to recycle right, to use our curbside recycling program and other programs in our community. And it is up to us. The responsibility is on us. As a matter of fact, do you remember this ad from Keep America Beautiful, the Native American canoeing in a river that was being polluted already? And the subtle message here was to pass the responsibility for the increasing plastic pollution back in the 1970s to the consumer, rather than to pass that responsibility to the manufacturers that choose plastic as their packaging material and put it out there in the marketplace. So the reality of the matter is that even for very conscious consumer, people like us that want to learn more about plastic pollution and how to limit plastics in our life, and we want to adopt zero waste styles, and we carry our own utensils and reusable bottle, reusable cup, all of these things that we're told to do to make, you know, the best choices possible for the planet and for ourselves and our families. The fact of the matter is that we have limited choices, that most items that we're going to consume come in some sort of plastic packaging. So there's limited availability to plastic-free choices, and they're also usually come from a specialty store or from the internet. Not everyone has access to those. And then most times they're beyond our budget. So this is time to increase or expand our strategies and to do more than just trying to be very green, very zero waste. Because the fact is that of all plastics ever produced, 79% ends in a landfill or out in the environment. 12% is being incinerated. And contrary to what many want us to believe, incineration is not at all any type of a solution for plastic, or even for producing energy, because incinerators release more greenhouse gases per unit of energy than all types of fossil fuel power plants. So this is also not a good solution. So then 9% of all the plastic ever manufactured, it's recycled. And then out of that 9%, actually only 2% is effectively recycled, which means that it is recycled into a similar product or a better product. So again, we have to think of other solutions, because this is like when you have, when your bathtub is overflowing, you don't run for a mop before you turn off the faucet. Here, the recycling is the mop, and we need to turn off the faucet of excessive plastic production and use and disposal. And to guide us on how to do that, to turn off the faucet, we'll have our next speaker, Catherine Uden, South Florida campaign organizer for Oceana, and she's going to talk to us how to turn off that faucet through getting involved in legislation and getting our elective officials engaged. Thank you. Kat? Let me stop sharing. Okay.
All right, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining and tuning in to learn about what you can do as far as legislation. I want to let everyone know that no matter how young or old or experienced or inexperienced you are, you can make a difference. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Catherine Uden, field representative for Oceana, and here in South Florida. Oceana is the largest international nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting the world's oceans. We have offices around the world and various campaigns, but our plastic pollution campaign is global because it's such a serious global problem. So here in our plastics campaign, we work on single-use plastics, and I'm going to tell you a little bit why we work on single-use plastics. And if you want to know more, you can definitely go to our website. Please get in touch with me, follow us on social media. And I think that Eric at 350 South Florida is also going to send up a follow-up email on how you can get in touch with me too. So the US is responsible for some of the highest plastic inputs to the ocean in the world. We actually rank third, and the US also generates more plastic waste than any other country in the world. We are actually number one. This is a problem that we need to get involved with, that we need to take responsibility for, and really it's too great for voluntary actions. We need legislation to curb this problem. So plastic production is expected to quadruple by 2050. So if you think about all of the plastic that we're producing now, thinking about quadrupling the amount of plastic we have, obviously we're going to start seeing more and more in the environment. Now, when we look at global plastics production, about 36% is packaging. So a huge part of the plastics pie, almost 40%, is your packaging. So when you look into that 36%, the plastic packaging is single-use material designed for immediate disposal. You're only going to use it for a couple minutes and then discard it. So single-use things like bottles, takeout containers, straws, cups. These things are, obviously things that we could either substitute reusable things for, or things that are an alternative material that aren't going to be as harmful to the environment. So also the reason why we're tackling these single-use plastic products is because if you've ever done beach cleanups, you know that these are the items that we're finding on our beaches. So the International Coastal Conservancy, International Coastal Cleanup Day occurs once every year. And what happens is it's sponsored by the Ocean Conservancy. They let all their participants track what type of trash they're picking up on their app. So every time they pick something up, marine debris, they track it, and they're able to collect this data to show us what types of items are the most problematic at our beaches and our waterways. So these were the top 10 items that we have: straws, stirrers, utensils, bottles, grocery bags, cups, plates. These are things that, again, we could have used something reusable and not had any waste at all, or we could have substituted them for a more environmentally friendly product. So when we look at landfills, also most of the plastic is single use, 61% non-durable. Plastic bottles, cups, straws, and as Diana said, these things go into either our landfill and create greenhouse gases because they pollute throughout their whole life cycle, or into the incinerator where they also contribute to climate change. So really we want to not only just reduce plastic, but reduce waste in general. So recycling is never going to keep up with our plastic waste. We cannot recycle the amount that we have even right now, let alone if we quadruple the amount of plastic we produce by 2050. So we can never recycle our way out of this problem. We really need to look at the source of the pollution. And like Diana said, this is the oil and gas industry. We make plastic with fracking, and we know how harmful that is to the environment. So we want to think about how we can not use these things in the first place. So single-use plastic policies are not strange. They occur in other cities, in other states, and entire nations are banning single-use plastics. So in 2016, we saw a huge uptick in the amount of countries that were banning single-use plastics. I know I see news stories popping up all the time of Jamaica, Bahamas, Scotland, Rwanda, Kenya banning the bag. So this is not strange in other countries. The US is kind of starting to lag behind a little bit in these policies. And, you know, we are supporting a federal bill, which I'll talk about. We are working at the state level, and we're also working at the local levels. So usually Oceana's campaigns are all federal policy, but on our plastics campaign, we certainly work local, state, and federal. And I'm going to go through a little bit on each level of government what we can do. So we have 3 levels of government. You have your local government, your state government, and your federal government. And I'm sorry if this is kind of, you know, information that you already know, but I also want to give this information to people that might not be as familiar with their government and have never really gotten engaged, because it's important for you to know that even if you've never thought about these things before or made a phone call to your elected official before, if you don't even know who they are, it's okay. You can learn these things really quickly and get involved. So at the local level, you're most likely going to have your county commission and your city or state. So, you know, working at these local levels are very, very similar. Some people, I think Diana pointed out that she doesn't really have a city government. It's more Miami-Dade County. But I also want to let you know that if you want to work on a plastic policy in another city, you can. I work on plastic policies in different cities. I did it as a volunteer. You can go speak at other city meetings. You don't necessarily have to live there. So if you want to go help out in another city and help pass something, don't feel obligated to stay within the confines of your own city. So you have a county commission, and you probably have a city commission. So you have a mayor at both levels. You have a county mayor and a city mayor, or a town council. And then you also usually have a commissioner or a council member. So at the state level, you have a state senator in the state house in Tallahassee. You have a state representative in the House of Representatives in Tallahassee, and you have the governor, Ron DeSantis. So when a law gets passed, when a bill gets introduced or filed, it has to be filed in the Senate, it has to be filed in the House of Representatives, and then if they pass in the both houses, they would go to the governor to be signed. Then you have your federal level, your US government in Washington, DC. You have, again, a House of Representatives in DC, the Senate in DC, and you have President Biden. So in the House of Representatives, you have 1 representative, and that depends on your district where you live. In Florida, we have 2 senators. Everybody has the same 2 senators, and that's right now Senator Rubio and Senator Scott. So we all share the same 2 senators, but depending on where you live, you're going to have a different US representative. And then if it passes, a federal law passes in the House and the Senate, it can go to the president and become a law. So those are our levels of government there. And I want you to notice too, in this picture, there's a group of Girl Scouts speaking at their city meeting in Deerfield Beach, because again, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can be a kid, you can, you know, be a retired person, it doesn't matter, a college student, anybody can go speak at their city meeting or get involved in their government. So I'm going to start with federal level. And again, this would be a law that would affect the entire United States. Like we talked about, many nations are passing single-use policies, and this would do a variety of things to reduce plastic at the source, to put more producer responsibility instead of consumer responsibility, like Diana said. We want to make sure that we have extended producer responsibility, that we're holding polluters and plastic companies accountable, and not putting it all on local governments to try to deal with all this waste and all this plastic that they're giving us. So if you want to know everything that this bill does, it is detailed at plasticfreefl.org. Click on what you can do federal. So just some of the things that you can do are listed here. And there's some new additions, because this bill was introduced in the 116th Congress. Now we have the new Congress, 117th Congress. It did not pass when it was first introduced the first time. So it's been reintroduced, and we're signing on co-sponsors again. We're signing on members to this bill that's been reintroduced. It's very similar in many ways, but it does have some new additions, and you can find out everything new that it does on that website. So it's going to phase out certain single-use plastics. It's going to do some of the same things that most other nations do as far as controlling retail plastic bags, polystyrene foam, you know, your typical plastics that are polluting our oceans and our beaches. It's going to put a temporary pause on plastic production facilities. The reason why this is important, again, if you thought about the way that plastic is going to quadruple, we want to put a pause on all of this plastic that's being produced. And when you think about where this plastic is being produced, it is polluting marginalized fence line communities, communities of color, low-income communities. These plastic production facilities are in neighborhoods where there's already very high cancer rates. One neighborhood is nicknamed Cancer Alley because of all of the petrochemical and plastic production facilities that are there. So it's a big social justice issue, and this is going to help tackle that. We're going to stop shipping our plastic waste to developing nations. I don't know if you're familiar that we used to ship most of our plastic waste to China, and we would pollute other countries. So China actually stopped taking our plastic waste in 2018 with a policy called National Sword, and that's one of the reasons why we're burying and burning so much plastic now, is because we used to ship it all to China. It's going to expand reuse and refill programs, make sure we're tackling microfiber and microplastics. It's going to initiate a container refund program. So the type of thing where it's like a bottle deposit, and it incentivizes people to either not throw their bottles on the ground or recycle them. So just take a look at plasticfreefl.org federal, all the things that you can do. You're going to ask your members of Congress. Again, that's Senator Rubio, Senator Scott, and whoever your representative is in your district. And that website will also give you a link to put in your address so you can find out who your U.S. representative is. And what you do is you call them and you ask them to co-sponsor this bill. You want to make sure you write down that bill number and you know which bill number it is. And in the Senate, that's the S, it's 984. And then the identical bill in the House, H for House, is 2238. So that's what you're going to ask your member of Congress to co-sponsor. So when you call your member of Congress, they're probably most likely never going to answer the phone. It's going to be a staff member, and the staff member will answer and you say, hello, my name is Catherine and I'm a constituent. Make sure they know that you live in their district. I am calling to ask Senator Rubio to co-sponsor and support the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which is Senate Bill 980. And it usually takes less than 60 seconds for you to make that call, and then you say thank you, goodbye. So again, you can find your members of Congress at govtrack.us or at that site, plasticfreefl.org. You can call and schedule a meeting if you want to speak at length with someone. You can usually schedule a meeting with one of their staffers. That's totally okay. If you don't get a meeting directly with them, you can schedule a meeting with their legislative director and speak with them about it and let them know why you would like them to take action on this issue. We also have our Take Action page on our website, where if you fill it out with your address, it will automatically go to your representative and your senators asking them to take action. So that is on the federal level. So on the state level, here in the state, you can ask your state representative and your state senator and the governor to repeal the preemption laws on plastics. So here in Florida, we have these things called preemptions, which I'll get into. Preemptions are bans on bans. It means we are restricted at the local level from taking action on most single-use plastics. We don't want these restrictions. We want our cities to be able to take action and our counties to take action. So you're going to ask your state representatives and state senators to repeal this preemption law to give us power back so that our local municipalities can take action. You can schedule an appointment, even if it's by Zoom. You can schedule a Zoom meeting. And if you feel nervous scheduling a Zoom meeting, you can invite me to it. I'd be happy to attend and give you that moral support and help you through your first meeting with your elected official. You can, just before legislative session, there are these things called county delegation meetings. And what was really good about this year was that you didn't have to go in person like you usually do. At least some of them did. Some of them required in person, but some of them were virtual. So I was actually able to attend more than one. So I attended the Brevard County delegation and the Broward delegation hearing online. And you get to speak with all of the state lawmakers in your entire county all at one time. Now, you don't get a long time to speak. You only get about 2 to 3 minutes. So you have to think about what you're going to say first, but you get to speak with every single state senator and every single state representative that lives in your county all at the same time to tell them about why they should care about plastic pollution and that you want them to repeal the preemption laws. Now, you can ask them to pass the state law. It's a little bit of ambitious goal right now, but right now we would just be happy if they would repeal the laws to give us power back. State bill would be great, obviously wonderful, but we do want our municipalities to have the power back. Now, during legislative session is 2 months long. It's 60 days. It just ended. It was from March 2nd to April 30th. It's super quick. And within those 2 months, they have to pass those laws. So during legislative session, you would want to ask your state senator and your state representative to co-sponsor the repeal bill. This year, we always have a bill that gets filed to repeal these preemptions and give power back to your cities. And they haven't passed yet. So when they get filed and when they get brought up again, you have to call your state representatives and ask them to co-sponsor and support these bills. So when you call your state representative or your state senator's office, again, most likely they're not going to answer the phone. I think I've maybe heard one time that the actual lawmaker answered the phone, but the staffer is going to answer the phone and you're going to say, "Hi, my name is Catherine. I live in your district and I would like Senator Farmer to co-sponsor HB, 1, 2, 3. So actually Senator would be S. So when you call, you can ask to schedule a meeting, again, either by phone or Zoom or in person if they're doing in person eventually, but usually the call can just be less than 60 seconds. It doesn't have to be anything long. I've even known people that are so shy talking on the phone, they do it after hours and leave a message on the answering machine so they don't have to talk to a real person. Up to you. Some people are more outgoing than others. So always hold your elected officials accountable. Ask them, did they co-sponsor the bill or didn't they? And if they didn't, ask them why. Why aren't you supporting this bill? Why won't you agree to help give us our power back, right? And consider also writing a letter to the editor. So a letter to the editor is when you write something for your local newspaper and it gets published. It usually has a word limit. It's usually very short, but it helps get the attention of your elected officials, especially if you name them in the letter to the editor. So there is guidance on how to write a letter to the editor at plasticfreefl.org. And this is actually a picture of my senator, Senator Farmer, when we went to Tallahassee for Rise Above Plastics Lobby Day. We used to go in person to Tallahassee, but this year, at least it was good that we were able to meet by Zoom. We met by Zoom with Senator Farmer and he did co-sponsor the repeal bill. So when these bills are filed in Tallahassee, these state bills, they're always referred to different committees. They're referred to a couple of different committees in the House and a few committees in the Senate. If these committee chairs don't care about the bill or don't get any calls about the bill, they will not put it on the agenda. They'll just never hear it. They'll never consider it. They'll never vote on it, and it'll just die. And unfortunately, that's what happened with the repeal bill this year. It was referred to committees in both the House and the Senate, and they were not heard. They were never put on the committee meeting agendas. So when you hear about these bills during legislative session, again, it's only 2 months long. When you hear about these bill numbers, you have to start calling immediately, get your representatives and senators to sign on, but also find out who the committee chairs are. And this year they were listed on plasticfreefl.org with their phone numbers and their names. So you could call them and ask them to put these bills on their meeting agendas to be considered. Let's say the chair lives in Sarasota and you have friends in Sarasota. Call your friends in Sarasota and say, hey, your senator is chair of this committee and we really need him to put the bill on his agenda. Can you call his office and ask him to place bill XYZ on the agenda? And hopefully if they get enough calls, they'll agree to do it. So that's very important every legislative session. And it has to be done, obviously, way before session ends, usually like the halfway mark. It's getting to be too late. So, we have to get on it right away when you find out the bill number. All right, so let's get into what your local municipality can do. So there are these things called preemptions. Like I said, we are not allowed in Florida to ban or tax plastic bags. That's preempted. We are not allowed to ban expanded polystyrene foam. We are not allowed to ban auxiliary containers. This is all preempted, but the containers is not clearly defined. So most cities are not going to ban anything that even can be remotely considered like a container, cups, food containers, that kind of thing. So they're worried about getting sued, and cities have gotten sued before for trying to ban things that are preempted. But in the preemption language, it says, does not limit the authority of a local government to restrict the use of polystyrene by individuals on public property, temporary vendors on public property. So what this means is that when you hear that cities in Florida are banning something, banning bags, banning cups, banning foam, it means they're banning it on their own property, their own parks, their own city hall, their own city events, the vendors that sign contracts with the city, your county beach. So it's on their own property. But they can't tell stores not to sell it. They couldn't go tell your local grocery store you can't sell foam. They can't tell your local restaurants you can't distribute food and foam, but they can ban it, the use of it on their own city property. Makes enforcement a little bit more tricky. And obviously a total complete ban would be easier to enforce and make a bigger impact, but unfortunately we're not allowed to do that here in Florida. Now, if you notice, we've got bags, we have expanded polystyrene foam, we have containers. None of that includes straws or utensils. So straws or utensils are not preempted. You can completely ban those. Now, when cities started banning plastic straws, the state legislature did try to preempt it. They passed a preemption law on straws. Luckily, Governor DeSantis vetoed it. So that is why we are still allowed to ban plastic straws. Of course, we highly, we need to tell you that if you are going to ban plastic straws, you need to make sure you have some kind of preemption or exemption in there for persons with disabilities, because some people need a straw because of medical needs. So if they request one, they should be able to get a straw. Utensils, no cities in Florida have completely banned plastic utensils, forks, knives, and spoons, but you can. You could completely ban them from your city, and that would mean that no stores would be able to sell them, no restaurants would be able to give them out, and they would either have to use something reusable, more sustainable, like wooden utensils or bamboo utensils, which some places are doing voluntarily, but not enough. Like my local Ben and Jerry's has wooden spoons, and I hear that they're doing that nationwide now, actually, just voluntarily. But we really want to have more plastic-free options. So, these laws can definitely help spark innovation and more availability. I can't go to my local grocery store right now and buy wooden utensils, but if we were to start passing ordinances banning the plastic utensils, you would start seeing them in stores and it would be easier to find. That's what we want. So plasticfreefl.org, what you can do local is where you can go. And plasticfreefl.org preemption is where the preemption language is. That's going to come in handy because sometimes your city attorney is going to say, sorry, we can't ban plastics. We're not allowed to in Florida. And you can show them the preemption language and say, look, there's loopholes. There's still things we can ban. There are still ways to do it on city property. Take a look at the preemption language because that's how other cities are doing it. So that's very important. All right, so municipalities, at least 27 municipalities in Florida have passed straw ordinances, and at least 23 have passed policies reducing other types of plastic and foam. So that is a lot. This is kind of domino effect, snowballing. Many municipalities are starting to take action, even though we have all these ridiculous preemptions. There's still action that they can take. So that'll help with when you speak with your city attorney too, to let them know that you are not alone. So I recommend finding out who your mayor and your city council members are, or commissioners, contact them, see if they are receptive to the idea, see if you have a majority of them on your side. Sometimes they can either put it as a discussion on an upcoming meeting agenda, or you might have a really receptive commissioner or mayor that says, this is a great idea. Let's go ahead and draft something and pass it. And then you can get lucky and they put it on their agenda as a vote. So find out if your city also has a sustainability advisory board that can help, or a sustainability coordinator. You can let them know your suggestions and they can possibly help you speed it along a little bit. If you don't have a majority of the council members on your side, then you're obviously going to start building your coalition, build your community support, organize your volunteers in your neighborhood, put pressure on your elected officials, and there are different tactics and ways to do that. So one tactic you can use is to speak at your city meeting. Now, most city meetings will let you speak about any topic you want. They'll usually have a public comment period where no matter what's on your mind, you can come in and speak for 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes I think there's only one city I've been to where it has to be on the agenda for you to speak on it, and that was Fort Lauderdale. But I think most cities let you speak about anything. So you submit a comment. Now virtually, some cities are letting you do it virtually, where you can submit a comment and they'll either read it out loud at the city meeting, or they'll unmute you just like a Zoom meeting and you can speak to them all at the same time. So check with your city website or your city clerk for procedures, because every city might be a little different. Make sure that you cut your statement down to about 2 or 3 minutes. If the topic is not on the agenda, usually there's a time again for general comments. Make sure you tell them the problem and what you're asking them to do. You want them to pass a policy reducing single-use plastics, and then follow up after the meeting and say, hi, remember me? I spoke during the meeting about plastic. How can we reduce in our city? And then your county may have stricter requirements for doing a presentation. So these are just some different ways that you can speak. On the bottom is a friend that spoke at the Dania Beach meeting about banning plastic straws. A teenager, she was president of her Plastic Free Mermaids Club at South Broward School. She's up there speaking on the microphone to her city council members. And then the top is the Dania Beach city meeting where they were considering the polystyrene foam ban on city property, and we were able to participate online. So let's say that you're not getting anywhere, you're running into roadblocks, you don't have a majority of people on your side, they're not receptive to your ideas. There are different tactics and ways that you can put pressure on your elected officials. So there are petitions, and most petitions are probably going to be more effective if they're constituents, voters in their district. Phone calls, emails, attend your city meetings, citizen advisory boards, use media, press releases. If you're doing a cleanup, contact the press, tell them what you would ultimately like to achieve besides just keeping on cleaning up, right? You don't want to grab that mop, you want to stop it, you want to turn off the tap. So make sure that if you're doing a cleanup and you're speaking to the press, you let them know what you would ultimately like accomplished as far as policy. Have constituent meetings. So, show your power, build your coalition and the number of people that you have, and say, hi, I'd like to take a meeting, and I have 10 other constituents that live in your district that want to talk to you about this issue. You can use social media pressure, start a page, Plastic Free Sunnyvale, and try to gain, support that way. Again, there's opinion pieces and letters to the editor that you can write in your local newspaper, and there's guidance at plasticfreefl.org on how to do that. If you are doing an event and you're tabling, and providing education, building awareness is really good. But you want to have a specific goal. So if you're going to table at an event and you're going to, build awareness, you want to say, okay, we're going to build awareness, we're going to do the education, and the ultimate goal is to get 100 signatures on this petition. Or we're going to do this event, and the ultimate goal of this event is to educate the public and get 50 people to call the mayor. So try to have a specific goal when you're educating and building awareness. Make sure you have that policy goal, like what is this tactic? Why are we doing this? Besides just building awareness and educating. You can also pass resolutions. So there are towns that have passed resolutions, which is basically just an official statement from your town. So like, for example, the city of Sunny Isles Beach passed a resolution supporting a repeal of the state preemptions. So the more municipalities that do that, the better. There's marches, there's protests. If your elected officials having a town hall, show up at the town hall, ask them a question about plastic and what they're going to do about it in front of other people. If you have celebrities, that's good. So these are just different tactics that you can use to put more pressure if needed. Sometimes it's not needed, which is nice, but just in case. So what you can do today is to go to plasticfreefl.org. A lot of good resources there. If you don't even know how to write an email to your elected official, how am I going to word it? There's different scripts there and what to say. So please go check it out and find out more about what you can do. And there's also Google. I learned a lot from Google. If you don't know how to get in touch with people, what does this bill say? Where is my city hall? How do I find out what's on my meeting agenda? Google it. And if you really, need help, I'm happy to help. I've, been working on local ordinances here in South Florida for a while. I really enjoy helping people make a difference in their town. So this is my email. These are different ways to follow Oceana in Florida, and that's our website. And if you have any questions on how to go about, passing something at the local level, or how to, lobby your state elected officials, if you need help, finding out who your members of Congress are, just let me know and I'd be happy to help. So thank you very much. And I'm going to pass this over to Anna. And is Anna ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Great. So Anna, let's see. Anna is from SurfriderMiami Beach, and I also used to volunteer a lot for Surfrider. It's a wonderful organization with many volunteer chapters. So this is just one of the chapters here in Florida, and she's the Rise Above Plastics coordinator.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kat, so much. So Surfrider has a dedicated team of science, environmental, and legal experts who are committed to protection of our oceans, waves, and beaches, from testing of our coastal waters to ensuring that runoff stays in your garden, and reducing plastic pollution. Surfrider programs help ensure that our marine ecosystems are protected. The foundation itself so far had about 21 victories in 2021 and 717 total victories, local, state, regional, and federal. When it comes to policy, our main areas of focus are plastic pollution, ocean protection, beach access, coastal preservation, and clean water. To name a few local victories, the team helped pass fertilizer ordinance for Miami-Dade County in April of 2021, polystyrene ordinance for the city of Sunny Isles Beach, also last month, fertilizer ordinance for the city of Miami Beach in January of this year. We helped reopen public beach parking for Village of Bal Harbour in September of 2020. We send representatives to both Tallahassee and DC each year to lobby for our ocean and coastal policy. We attend live local commission meetings where topics important to beach and marine environment are covered, and regularly sending out easy instructions and call to actions on pending local, state, and federal legislation affecting the beach. To give one example on how we demand action on climate change, over 150 Surfrider members and surf ambassadors traveled to Washington, D.C. on February of this year to meet with federal leaders about ways to protect our ocean. Participants visited 145 Senate and House offices to urge immediate action on climate change, plastic pollution, water quality, and other key issues. Surfrider and our partners also participated in high-level meetings with White House officials and the Senate Democrats Committee on the Climate Crisis to advocate for federal action to protect our coast and ocean. These discussions were a timely opportunity to remind our federal leaders that over 100 million Americans visit the beach each year, supporting 2.4 million jobs and contributing over 124 billion to our nation's gross domestic product. Another major priority for us for Hill Day was building leadership to tackle plastic pollution crisis in our ocean. For the attendees, urged Senate and House members to co-sponsor the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act that Surfrider recently helped introduce to stop the flow of plastic into the ocean. Surfrider Foundation has strong relationship with our local elected officials. Surfrider Chair currently sits on Miami-Dade County Mayor Task Force for Biscayne Bay. City of Miami Beach Treasurer sits on Sustainability Committee for Miami Beach. Surfrider Miami Chapter has close relationship with Florida House member Michael Greco and Florida Senate member Jason Pizzo. One of the important issues we're working on is making sure that businesses have tools and appropriate information needed for easy transition to sustainable solutions. So beyond sustainable ordinances, the second responsibility for all of us really is to make sure that those laws are enforced and businesses are not ignoring the hard work that had taken us to make sure that those laws take place. Within my scope of work, our company Lean Orb is building compostable solutions to single-use catering supplies. So products such as to-go containers, cups, plates, cutlery, and straws. And we spend a great deal of time educating our local businesses, making sure they're aware that certain ordinances are taking place, informing on the solutions we have available, readily available locally, that also gives us more information on how to help community adapt to the change that is happening. So to sum it up, at Surfrider, we believe that only through a strategic collaboration between policymakers, academia, for-profit sector, environmental groups, and residents will we see the strong shift in the community when it comes to climate action. And we encourage all to use your voice and participate in the conversation. We currently have 176 chapters and student clubs who are responsible for over 180,000 of volunteer hours each year. So there's a lot of room to participate and connect with us on specific campaigns that you might be passionate about. Please connect with us on miami.surfrider.org. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Anastasia and Catherine and Diana, for that amazing presentation. Before we get into question and answer, I just wanted to launch this quick poll here to see how well people know who their local representatives and officials are. So, you know, there's if you click on the poll in progress button on their Zoom, you can respond to the poll. Obviously, you know, a lot of these solutions are going to be found at the local level, and it's important to know who some of these representatives are. So let's, while people are filling that out, we'll do some question and answer. It looks like we have a few questions. First one is from Gwyneth, who asked, what can we do now that the Florida legislative session is over? I guess that would be a good one for Kat to answer.
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, the Florida legislative session ended on April 30th. We were actually advocating for two bills. We were advocating for a bill to repeal the preemptions and to ask the DEP to do a study, update their study on plastic bags that was 11 years old. What you can do is find out if your state senator, your state representative co-sponsored the repeal bill. If they didn't, you are going to ask them why. Maybe they didn't hear about it. They probably did, because we did a lot of outreach and we had a lot of people sign petitions and do lobby meetings. We organized virtual lobby meetings. So if they didn't, you want to find out why. And if they are willing to co-sponsor next year, just tell them, like, look, I'm going to get in touch with you again next year when the repeal bill is filed, and I'm going to need you to sign on when I give you a call. So form that relationship with your state elected official before the next legislative session, so that you can say, hi, remember me? We met about single-use plastics while another repeal bill was filed, and I'd like you to co-sponsor it. It's Bill 123, and hopefully it'll be easy to sign on once you form that relationship. I encourage everybody to form a relationship with your state senator and your state representative, so they know who you are, so that when you call, they're like, oh yeah, this is the person that cares about plastics, and she's going to want us to sign on, so that it's easier next year. If you're not getting anywhere with them, start putting pressure on them. I can help you with those tactics. Maybe consider writing a letter to the editor and gain some attention.
Great, thank you. We have another question from Facebook. I was just wondering, I guess Ron was wondering if there are any cities on the Gulf Coast of Florida that have taken action on plastics. I guess either Kat or Anastasia, maybe you know.
There definitely are on the Gulf Coast. If you go to plasticfreefl.org and click on sample legislation or what you can do local, it'll list all of those municipalities that have passed plastic straw ordinances, as well as municipalities that have passed some type of other plastics ban. And you know, some of those are Gulf Coast. They're all our Gulf Coast cities that have passed ordinances.
Great. And one more question is from Patricia. She wanted to know, she liked the idea of the Girl Scouts making a presentation to their local city council, and wanted to know if there are other initiatives in schools to raise awareness and get students involved. I
don't know if we can all answer that. I know Anastasia can probably talk about things that maybe, I don't know, SurfriderMiami has done with youth, but I actually used to be a teacher for Broward schools for 15 years. And, you know, obviously I do a lot of it voluntarily, but I am a strong advocate for environmental education. I wish it was mandatory in every grade level every year, because, you know, really that's where it's at and how you can train kids really young to care about these issues. But I am totally happy to do a virtual presentation if there are any teachers out there or any leaders of youth groups or Girl Scout troop leaders. I've done presentations virtually for Girl Scout troops, and it's really up to the Girl Scout troop if they want to create a project. That Deerfield Beach one where you saw the sea turtle dressed up and testifying in front of the city commission, that was the Girl Scout troop, and it was their idea that they wanted to pass this straw ordinance. So Surfrider Broward County chapter helped them with their presentation, and they were able to pass that ordinance. So if you want a virtual presentation, I've even done youth workshops on how to get kids engaged civically to make sure that they're taking action as well. You know, reach out to me. And I know Surfrider Foundation also has, I think you know, you have some teachers also involved with your chapter that you know, has reached out to Miami-Dade County Public Schools to ask them to reduce plastic, right?
Right, to reduce plastics and introduce composting on site, and introduce more of a like greening schools initiatives. On my end, I'm working a lot with FIU and UM students, and we see much interest from younger generation to participate and kind of state their voice when it comes to reducing plastic. So the programming they're helping us, for example, right now, it's ocean-friendly restaurants. They want to go out to their local businesses themselves without their parents and make sure that business owners are aware that you know, they live in their neighborhood and they don't want to see to-go containers being thrown out, you know, when it's made of plastic. So they're actually sharing a lot of the information for Surfrider, which is really nice.
Great, thank you. We have one more question from Simon, who was wondering if there are, is it possible to get around the preemption laws by, instead of banning specific items, to require vendors to offer other choices?
Yeah, I believe we probably could, but no city has done it yet. So you could throw that out there and have your, you know, your city attorney look into that. I think that offering, because you're not banning it, right, and you're not taxing it, you're just asking them to have to provide, for example, paper or plastic. So yeah, that could be a loophole, but I haven't heard of any cities that have done that yet. Another option is to ask for opt-in policies or by request only policies. So for example, the city of Los Angeles just passed a law where, you know, if you're ordering delivery or takeout, you would have to opt in to get those extra utensils and things in your bag, because a lot of us don't even need it, right? We're eating at home, we don't need those utensils. So people end up with these drawers full of utensils that they don't need. So this law would require people to opt in, and really that's a win-win for everybody, because it reduces plastic, because it's not giving people plastic they don't want, and it's saving the businesses money because they're not buying so much of this stuff. So it could be a win-win for everyone. I'm even thinking about proposing that as a state law. You never know, because I do think it would be a huge reduction to not get all those extras if you don't need it, and it saves the businesses money. So it's a good idea.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Are there any other questions? If you want to raise your hand in the chat, you can do that too, and we'll unmute you. Doesn't look like it. Well, thank you again, Diana and Kat and Anastasia. Once again, I'm going to post the links in the chat for Kat's email and the website for Plastic Free Florida and the SurfriderMiami website. And then also we're going to share the results of our poll. And it looks like most people knew, you know, their state and local reps as far as mayors, but we have a little bit of work on the commissioners. And that's where a lot of actually bill writing happens, is with city commissioners and county commissioners. So it's definitely worth looking into who they are and getting to know them, so that, you know, you can develop a relationship over time. Oh, it looks like we do have a hand raised. Catherine De Leon, you had a question.
Yeah, I would just like to make a comment. I am in that community awareness group of the 350 South Florida, and I really want to thank Diana for, I mean, her lifelong, practically, commitment to this. And I learned so much for just listening to her. Like, you know, we can't go to the store. If you want to buy tomatoes, it comes in a package already. If you want to, so many things are not loose and you just pick them up. They're already packaged, so you don't even get a choice not to have plastic. So I really appreciate everything you do, Diana.
I couldn't
Thank
agree
you,
with you more. Diana was
And I also want everybody to look out. Diana and I are hoping to partner together on a multilingual presentation together for plastics, because we want to get this message out in different languages and help as many people as we can in Florida.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Please stay tuned to our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter accounts, 350 South Florida and Miami Surfrider, as well as Oceana. And thank you again for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Eric, for having us.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.
And thanks again, Diana was the driving force to make this happen. So thank you again for everything.
Okay, good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Diana. Thank you,
Okay,
Anna.
thank you. Bye.